Hey guys, Ian here from DrumRadar.com, and welcome to our very first YouTube video. Today is very exciting because I have a very special guest with me, and that is Mr. Gene Hoglan. And if you don't know who Gene is, he is an absolute pioneer and legend in the metal drumming community. Um, you might know him from some of his nicknames like the Atomic Clock or the Human Drum Machine. He's been in bands like Dark Angel, Death, Strapping Young Lad, Devin Townsend, Fear Factory, Dethklok, Testament, Anthrax, Opeth, and many more. He's also been on the cover of Modern Drummer magazine. So, Gene, thank you so much for doing this. It's a huge honor to have you here, and welcome. How's it going?
Thank you very much, Ian. The honor's mine. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, let's get right into it. The first thing I want to talk about is your crazy stamina as a drummer. It's something that always interests me because there's people that always listen to your music around me and they're always like, oh my God, how is this possible? And I saw an interview with Scott Ian of Anthrax before saying that you would basically play an entire Testament set and then you would go eat an energy bar and you'd come right back up on stage. You play an entire Anthrax set. So, I mean, did you ever get tired from this? And like, what kind of exercises were you doing to kind of prepare your body for that kind of thing, for that
Oh my
workout?
God. No, I playing for 2.5 hours. Boy, even in a live setting, that is just pretty darn easy. Just um, you know, I other people have come to me and asked, like, hey man, how do you do that sort of thing? Play for 2.5 hours? That just sounds crazy. Like, wow. And I'm just like, gosh, if you record a record, you're playing drums for 10 hours for a
Mhm.
few days straight, or if you're in serious rehearsals for an album, you're going to
Yeah,
play for
and you're
6.
not playing light. You're playing with everything you've got too. And I feel like most people couldn't do that for that period of time. And
Oh man,
it's
I bet you more people could. I
yeah,
think people are more superhuman than they think, because
yeah,
contrary to popular belief, I am not Superman. I am the laziest person I know. I guess I store up my energy all day for the show,
yeah.
which that's yeah, I can see myself doing that.
So you don't do any kinds of exercises to just prepare for that? Is it you just hop right into it and it doesn't
You
phase you?
pretty much. I mean, I'll
Wow.
do a little warming up if needed. Like say with Testament, I don't need to warm up that much because there's not that much involved in say a Testament set that is like say where we're blistering double bass right out of the gate or anything. We don't really do that with Testament, and Anthrax kind of didn't either when I was doing double duty for both of them.
Mhm.
But if I like to warm up for about, just a few minutes. Do
Mhm.
stretches for me are more important than warming up. I
Okay.
don't even use a pad to warm up
Oh,
anymore.
really?
No, what I do is I I tape three drumsticks together. Well, six, I suppose, two
Hmm.
pairs, but I tape three of my drumsticks together and just waggle those around for about 5 minutes, and there I'm warm.
Oh, so just in
It's
the air, you just
Yeah, yeah.
oh,
Even
oh, wow.
just like say it, playing on an imaginary
Mhm.
pad right in front of me,
Yeah.
um, or just kind of a rudimentary air drumming kind of thing.
Mhm.
But there's not that much to it. I
Mhm.
don't. I know a lot of guys that they start warming up in the afternoon for their shows.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And they'll take cracks at it all day, and I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, wow, that's a whole lot of dedication. Um, I just kind of, I don't go as far as like say Dave Lombardo, who does absolutely zero warming up. I mean,
Mhm.
his first song he plays is the first time he's touched a drumstick all day.
Yeah.
Like I'll
Wow.
take 5 minutes before the show, 10 minutes or
Mhm.
whatever, and just you know that's where stretching I find is a little more important. The stretches that I do allow me to kind of at the end of the 30 seconds it takes to stretch, that is kind of equivalent for me anyway of maybe doing like 10 minutes of
Mhm.
serious rudiments or anything like that. So
Yeah.
um, I suppose that is one thing that is not to my benefit, is that I know a lot of times when you warm up with a pad, you start working on like rudiments and things like that, and
Yeah.
boy, I never do. Which is that's to my detriment. I should should consider constantly improving in that regard. But
Mm.
the way I figure is, man, it's just a rock show. You don't have to do too much. In order to prepare for something like if I'm doing double duty or any kind of show, I am a serial napper. I have been for 20
Yeah.
years, easy. Grab a little nap after
Oh, you're
dinner,
drumming
after
in
the
your
meet and
drumming in
greet.
your dreams,
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I take a quick nap. Whether it's I can pound a lot of energy into a 5 minute nap, or
Mhm,
usually my naps are about an hour. Sometime
mhm.
after dinner, after the meet and greets, after all that sort of stuff, I'll retire to my bunk for an hour or so and just chill my boots
Yeah.
and grab a quick nap. There's been many a time back in the strapping days when I was napping to uh, to ward off the hangover from the night before, and
Yeah.
there'd be Byron knocking on me like, "Gene, we are on in 5 minutes." I'm like, "Hey, sort of thing. That
Yeah.
was just more of a unconsciousness rather than napping. But I
Yeah.
quit drinking a long time ago, so I'm yeah,
Yeah.
just getting good rest. It's important with anything, any kind
Yeah.
of health regimen, really.
So you've played at so many different venues with so many different bands, and it's heavy metal. So, I mean, you've probably seen a lot of crazy stuff. Do you have any crazy like gig horror stories of where just something went, just where things just went terribly wrong, or any crazy stories? I'm sure you've seen some stuff.
Oh, there's tons of them. There's one time with Dark Angel where I accidentally pooped my pants on stage. Real fun. and
And you just keep
and then
playing, or
what's that?
you just keep playing, I guess. Or
Fortunately, it happened in the very last song.
oh, that's
So I was fortunate there. All I had to do is just run straight off the stage and run right into the shower. But oh God, that was 30 something years ago. And
yeah.
um, there, gosh, there's been times when, God, even with Dark Angel, where there was one time we were on our way to the next town and we had been pulled over by the cops,
Mhm.
and I was driving the equipment van, and I remember oddly enough we had picked up this hitchhiker in Seattle a couple the night before, maybe a couple of nights before, and we were
Mhm.
driving from Portland to the Bay Area, and that's about a 10-hour drive or so. And
Mhm.
I was doing all the driving, and we had just picked up this guy that said, "Hey man, I'm trying to get to San Francisco. Um, can I work for you guys just for a couple of days and just catch a lift with you guys?" And back then we were like, "Yeah, sure, man, no problem." And I remember I pulled into this. It was in Dunsmuir, California, and I pulled into into a gas station, just a Shell station on the
Mhm.
right off the highway. And I was pulling. I was in the equipment van, and I was the first one in. So as I was pulling in, I see the RV that has the rest of the guys from Dark Angel in it and the crew and all that. Um, I see them coming into the parking lot for the gas station as well,
Mhm.
but they're being trailed by like 4 or 5 cop cars. I'm
Huh.
just like, what the hell, And so I walk in there, and I walk into the thing, start, to pay for the gas, and um, then Buddy behind the counter, he's asking me like, "Hey man, are you with a group of guys that are in an RV? Are you part of that crew?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's the rest of my band. I'm driving this equipment truck here." He's
Mhm.
like, "Well, the cops have been following you guys for the last hour. Um, and they followed you for the last 50 miles, and they've called everywhere up and down. We were on the 5 freeway.
Mhm.
They've called everywhere up and down the 5 freeway, letting everybody know, hotels, restaurants, gas stations, that there is a group of bikers in an RV that are waving pistols
Oh
around."
my
And I'm
god.
like, "Look, I know there are a lot of guys in my band that are carrying weapons with them, real weapons, but as for waving these guns around like a passing motorist," and somebody had said that one of the reports was that somebody hung one of the guns out the window and started pretend firing
Mhm.
at a passing motorist. And I was like, I know my guys are retarded, but this is way over the top. No way." And then I realized, holy moly, the 2 days before, we were in Salt Lake City, and everybody had picked up water pistols, that looked
Oh.
exactly like guns.
Wow.
So yeah, I could see if we're driving down the road with our the curtain open, and guys are shooting each other with water
Yeah.
pistols. And so they had, when I came out, I hadn't quite realized all this was happening because already been driving for a long time. And when I came out, all of a sudden, I see them slowly bringing out all my guys, one by one, putting everybody on the
Mhm.
ground, face
Wow.
down. There's about 12 cops. There's about 6 cars there. Each of them have a cop and his partner.
Mhm.
There's 12 cops that have high powered rifles trained at my guys. All of a sudden, they're done getting all the guys on the ground. Then they rush the gas station that, just
Mhm.
the shopping part that I'm in. And they haul me out of there, forcefully. They throw me on the ground, and they're telling all of us that, where they're asking, where are the weapons? We know you have weapons. And I'm like, motherfucker, I know these guys got weapons, but what the hell are you talking about? And then you hear one of the cops from inside the RV going, "We found them. We found the guns." And I'm just like, "Oh, fucking hell." And then you hear another cop go, "Ah, shit, they're water pistols." And we got off light, but I mean, there's just a typical example. I
Wow.
know it doesn't have to do with the gig, but I mean, a typical
That's,
example of tomfoolery that happens on tour. And
yeah.
hey, if you got the wherewithal to remember it, yay, None of us got shot or killed, but I mean, we've all been involved in all the nonsense that can occur in a rock
Mm.
tour. Yeah, we've all been involved in
Yeah,
that at
I'm
some
sure you're
point.
used to it all. How about a favorite gig? Do you have, like, if you could relive any one moment up on stage from your whole career, is there anything that really stands out to you?
Well, gosh, there are so many amazing strapping gigs
Mm.
that I recall where it's just like, God, that was beautiful. That was amazing. Like that is one thing about strapping that I always loved was that um, I always felt like every single night strapping was changing somebody's life.
Hmm.
That I felt that with Dethklok as well. And I don't feel that so much with a lot of my other projects, but strapping at the time, yes, because so many people would come up afterwards and just go, "Oh my God, my mind is so blown. I had no idea what to expect." And that just exceeded my expectations.
Mhm.
And, a lot of young dudes that are just trying to figure out, "Hey man, do I want to be in a band or not?" They're like, after seeing strapping, "Yes, I want to be in them," kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Dethklok was kind of the same way. I know
Hmm.
Dethklok was quite the gateway band for metal for a lot of people. And so many folks came up to me after shows going, "Look, and these guys are like older than me, sort of thing. They're like,
Mhm.
dude, I'm in my 50s and I've been to every single concert in my town here, club shows to big concerts. And this was the best concert I've ever seen in
Wow.
my life." And, talking about Dethklok. And so I always like the bands my bands that I always felt like we were changing people's lives. I always like that, and sometimes you don't always get that with a band. You're like, yeah, this band I'm playing with or I'm playing for, we're a kick-ass band. We play a good show every night. But if it's that, if it might not necessarily be a life-changing experience for people, I understand that.
Mhm.
But all I try to do every night, I try to bring that life-changing experience, whether the band is going to, prove to be
Mhm.
a life-changing experience kind of band. I would at least like people, if they're looking at myself, to go, "Hey, I was so blown away by the way you played. I want to play drums, or I want to dedicate myself even harder to drums," or that sort of
Mhm.
thing. So, at least I try to get that out of it. But yeah, I
Yeah.
played a lot of great shows with a lot of great bands. And even Testament this last year, God, we had so many killer shows with Slayer on we did the two legs of the Slayer goodbye tour,
Mhm.
and every single show was amazing on that
Yeah.
tour. It's Slayer, it's
Yeah.
huge shows, and everybody's having a great time. So that's really the most important, I suppose.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure it feels, yeah, amazing to hear that kind of feedback. I'm sure it keeps driving you to, keep pushing the boundaries. And um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about open-handed drumming. You're an open-handed drummer,
Yes, sir.
and it's something that really interests me because I play open-handed as well, and I love watching drummers like Billy Cobham, Simon Phillips, Mike Mangini, yourself, just to see what kind of drum setups you guys have, because it's always really open-handed drummers always have very unique like cymbal setups, and it always gives me different ideas.
Yeah, totally.
So, what over your career have you found to be some of the advantages of open-handed playing and some of the disadvantages, or are there any disadvantages you found of open-handed playing?
Well, there's a couple advantages right off the bat. One is that you can play drums real well with a big gut. Open-handed. That was kind of one of the reasons why I developed the open hand, because like crossing over is I had a big gut back in the day.
Mhm.
But the whole reason why, oh, and another advantage is that I find that your power is unlimited if you
Mhm.
play open-handed, because you're not having to cross over or anything like that. You don't have, you're not having to play like this.
Yeah, I guess you can only come up so far, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I'm sitting on somebody else's kit and they're obviously a right-handed player, and I'll cross over and try to play. I'm like, how do you even do this? Like this, I'm hitting everything together. Here at least I
Mhm.
can go, wham wham, and um, I have an economy of motion to my playing. I'm not a big, wild, arms swinging kind of drummer, um, unless there's parts where that is effective in the entertainment value of it. But um, just playing open-handed, gosh, I was always told, like the reason I play open-handed is merely the location of my record player as opposed to my bed when I was a kid. My record player was
Yeah.
in the top corner. Like if you're sitting on the bed, it's in the top right corner. It's
Hmm.
and it was that way. There's the corner of the bed right there. And
Hmm.
I got Simpsons on in the background. Sorry, um, but and I would sit with my legs over this side of a bed and of my bed. And one thing that I noticed is that if you're pounding on the bed, the top corner of the bed is kind of a higher, tighter tone. There's your snare. If you were to take your drumstick and go in the middle of your bed all the way to the top of the bed, you'll be like do 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 do.
Yeah.
So okay, well, that one over there is the snare, and then I guess the kick drum and stuff would be over in the middle area of the bed.
Hmm.
Um, and so that was really just about it.
Yeah,
If
because I was going to
you're
ask,
playing
because
on the other side,
you were self-taught.
yes, sir.
So I was going to ask if you were trying to emulate a drummer that you saw like play before that was open-handed, or
No,
it was it was just fully the bed thing.
it was just where my record player
Wow,
was located next to my
crazy.
bed. That was really about it. Um, as I got bigger and fatter, I was like, yeah, man, this is cool that I'm playing open-handed. But it like I always got told by, because I was 12, 13 during, when I was 13 when I started playing, a drum kit. And, guys I knew and anybody that would, everybody just told me I was wrong for playing open
Hmm.
handed. You're wrong. That's wrong. You have to cross over. And I'm like, who are you to tell me what's right or wrong? This is comfortable for me. I like doing it and I'm pretty
Hmm.
decent at it. So why are you telling me what's right or wrong? Well, it's just wrong to do what you're doing. And then there was a drummer in town whom I really respected tons and I loved his band. His name was Brian O'Brien, and he was in a band from Los Angeles called A La Carte. And he was a great drummer. And he worked at at a music store, and I happened to be in that store, and I was like, dude, I love your drumming. Would you ever mind coming over to my place and maybe picking me apart a little bit? And he's like, yeah, no problem. He came over to my house. He sat behind my kit, played some awesome stuff, but then he was remarking on my cymbal placements. He's like, dude, you play open-handed. That is so amazing. That is such a great idea, because you can have a mountain of cymbals over here, a mountain of drums over there, and you never have to. It's really cool what you're doing.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, finally, and finally, somebody is not telling me I'm wrong for this.
Hmm.
So that was very heartening. And um,
Do you still
with
get critics
being,
today?
I wouldn't know if I do. I
Mhm.
probably have lots of critics, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't read a lot of forums. I could have people out there that are like, man, Hoagland's still wrong for playing open-handed. That'll never get to me,
Yeah.
sort of thing. So, but uh, one thing that I've found, I am essentially a left-handed lead. Like, as a person, I'm ambidextrous. I can write with either hand, throw with either hand, sort of thing. I am, well, gosh, I can't even say I'm right hand dominant. I mean, if I were to write something, chances are I'd be right-handed. But I do a lot of things. I eat left-handed. I
Mhm.
shave left-handed. Like I think everybody is ambidextrous to a large degree. You just don't even notice it.
Yeah.
I have a hard time running a remote control with a left hand. I have to do that right. So,
Yeah.
um, but the I am kind of a left-handed lead in my fills. So, um, if one thing I've tried to always be cognizant of is if you're going to play something left-handed, you should probably be able to play it right-handed as well, just because
Mhm.
you never know when you're going to have to play this thing right-handed. Like if you jump up on somebody else's kit, or if you're doing like one of those like dime bash or something. I
Mhm.
play those pretty much every year, and I don't even bother telling them, hey man, I got to throw this ride over here to the left. I'll play the song right-handed,
Yeah.
sort of thing. And like when I do the double duty with Anthrax, um, I'll play Charlie's drum kit. I'll play
Mhm.
his setup as well, and he and I have drastically different setups.
Mhm.
I'm a super long dude, and Charlie's a little more economically sized, and so I'll play his setup, and we don't change anything really. The one thing that I do notice is that my hi-hat, since I'm open-handed, it tends to sit a little lower than
Mhm.
most right-handed players. So it's probably challenging for a right-handed drummer to just sit behind my kit and just cross over easily, because their
Yeah.
hand is so low when they're having to
Do
cross
you
over.
do you angle your hi-hat as well, or is it pretty much level with the ground?
You can angle a hi-hat?
Well, I actually I saw Simon Phillips play with Protocol recently, and I don't know how he does it, but his hi-hat is at a slight angle, which I always found kind of interesting.
Wow, that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just straight to the ground, pretty
Okay.
parallel to the ground. That's how I do it.
Very cool. Very cool. What's your philosophy on like tuning and muffling of drums? Because I've heard that you don't use drum keys. You just finger tighten your drums, which is crazy because I mean you're the only drummer I've heard of that does that. So I'm curious, what are some of the advantages of doing that you found?
Well, gosh, it's there's not much to that. I learned that from my old drum tech, Steve Good. Um, that's just the way that he did it, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting, because I like having a really detuned drum myself. Give me that low, bassy, beefy thud. That's
Mhm.
what I like. So this is a great way to achieve that. And all you really do, you just take the tom, and you push down on the rim, and then you
Mhm.
squeeze that one, slide it over one, push down, squeeze on that. You just kind of do that until you get a good, just a good uh, tension, I suppose.
Yeah.
And
Do you
then
find there's like a lack of rebound on the that you have to like kind of compensate for, or does that not?
there can be, but I try not to get them so low that they're
Yeah.
just hanging
Hmm.
on the threads there. You can get a decent tuned low, but not subatomic kind of low,
Yeah.
out of some toms, just by finger tightening them, and it you got to use some pressure. You
Mhm.
got to push down a little bit, and I've got little little calluses right here on
Oh yeah.
my thumb from doing that. And Yeah. So
Awesome.
and then your bottom heads, you kind of tune a little bit lower than your top ones. If you like the tones that I like to get, I like that big duo, duo,
Mm,
that kind of tone. Um, and I am really I'm amenable to whatever, like say whatever the sound man likes. If the sound
mm,
man's like, I kind of like my toms to be a little up higher, that helps me out. It's like, Jeff, my drum tech, Jeff, tune them higher.
yeah.
I've had sound guys like with Testament that have said, I kind of like them a little higher because a lot of times, Testament's drums follow the guitar when the guitar's going, stuff like that.
Mm,
You got the kind of little following drum patterns that go along,
mm,
tom patterns that go along with certain fills. Um, I like them to be a little higher for that regard. So I just try to be pretty open minded and try any approach, try all approaches. There's
yeah.
just whatever works for me doesn't mean it's perfect, but it's the way
Mm,
I like it.
yeah, very true. So you're kind of a pioneer when it comes to a lot of double bass work in metal. So do you have any like one double bass exercise or tip that you can give to people kind of just starting out with double bass that might be able to kind of help them out and progress a little bit faster?
Well, let me see. I tell you, it's been a pretty well-known part of my career that I'm a huge proponent of leg weights while
Mm,
playing drums. I find that to be extremely helpful. And I used to play with 3 pound leg weights per leg. I've since upped that to 5 pounds per leg. And I'll play an entire show with them on, or I'll play up, the part of a show up to where, okay, here comes the Holland double bass song, pop them
mhm,
off for this one, or this round of songs or whatever. Um, Either way, but one thing that does is I swear that the leg weights, they start uh, accentuating muscles that you don't normally focus on when
mm,
you are playing drums. You've got your
yeah.
ups and downs, and you've got like your pivoting of your ankle if you are a heel up player, uh, or you've got your full grinding, legs up and down kind of thing.
Mhm,
I've always had kind of an economy of motion to my double bass, even when I was a strictly heel up player, which was the first, Jesus, 30 something years of my career.
mhm,
Uh, I wouldn't, you'd never see my knees move all that much, even though I was a heel up player. It was
mm,
mostly coming right from the ankle, right,
yeah.
right there. And that's kind of why I've been able to have some economy of motion in my wrists as well. Like I said, I'm not a big wild arm swinger, but I'm able to, and I think anybody can do this. I was just able to like kind of focus all my energies
Mhm,
to my extremities. So, I was able to make it fast, yet make it powerful and not have any velocity, uh, lack of any velocity going on
yeah.
when I'm doing that sort of thing. But another decent exercise I've found is like all you have to do is just, if you could play double strokes on your hands, try doing single strokes underneath that with your feet. So,
Mm,
for every, like the 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, on the 1 and 3, you're playing the kicks,
mhm,
which your kicks would just be doing some, I guess, maybe, 30-second notes or 16th notes, whatever they want to be called these days.
mhm,
That kind of thing with your kicks, just alternating left and right. But you're doing the, with your hands. I've found that is a good, I guess, just equalizer from your top to your bottom.
mm,
If you're if you're playing an even rate on your hands and your feet, they're going to be in unison. They're going to match up. You're gonna know if you're on or off if you're
mhm.
flamming with your hands and your feet. And I found that's, now pardon this
That's okay.
airplane going overhead. I know it's louder than hell. It's louder than hell here, so I'll give that a second. I can see it moving. I'm not really in a flight path here in San Diego, but there is the Miramar naval base not too far away, and
Yeah.
they've always got fighter jets flying overhead. But you'll if you find yourself flamming, you just kind of try to get it in that little zone to where, hey, nothing's flamming, so let me stick with this tempo for a few.
Mhm.
Then kind of just juice it up a little more, then juice it up a little more, and then you'll get it to the point where you could just juice it at any time. It's just a little warm up exercise, but you are constantly in unison. You take the tempo up, and you're in unison with your hands and feet. Everything's coming down at the same time that should
Mhm.
be. You're left with your left, you're right with your right, and all that. That's a pretty good exercise. But you know, one thing I think air drumming is the best
Yeah,
exercise
because
out there.
that's how you got started, right? I mean, yeah.
That's how I get started. That's how I figure out songs still. That's how I can practice without practicing. I mean, I've got a couple of sticks right here when I come out and have a smoke, I'll just sit here and air drum and stuff.
Mhm.
But, that's always good too. Just because you can't be on your kit does not mean you cannot be practicing.
Mhm.
Um, I do a lot of, like if I'm working out a song, I'll be lying on my back just doing this with my hands. That's the hand part of the drums, and my
Mhm.
toes are doing that. They're playing along with me, just my big toes and stuff.
Yeah.
So you can always practice. Just because you can't physically be on a drum kit, you can still be practicing.
So is there anything that any one thing that you find that most drummers today tend to like overlook when they're practicing or when they're playing? Because I'm sure you see a lot of drummers like everywhere, I'm sure.
Sure.
So is there something that you just notice that's like a very common trait that kind of just annoys you that you wish more drummers would be aware of?
Well, I won't say that it annoys me, but I do
Mm.
feel for those drummers that I see up there that aren't able to relax.
Mm.
Like a lot of times, especially when in the extreme metal world, you see some guys out there that when they're playing the hauling blast beats, their faces are about to fall off, their
Mhm.
arms look like they're just about to drop off, they're just killing themselves up there. And I've always felt like, gosh, if the more technical and extreme the part, the better it is that I relax for it, because I'm going to be in a lot better position to be able to play it, from a mental standpoint, because that's
Mhm.
that's a lot of it. A lot the aggression's going, the adrenaline's running. I completely understand that. But if you can control your adrenaline or
Mhm.
your psychosis on stage, just control it enough to where you can make all the faces and make it look like you're killing yourself, but you
Yeah.
really don't have to. And that's one thing that I have seen with a lot of younger guys. They look like they're just about to die up there, and I always feel bad for those guys, because it's like, man, you can make this a whole lot easier on yourself, And then you see them in between songs, and they're just huffing and puffing and dying, and you see them when they get off stage, and they're about to die. And
Yeah.
me, when
I
I
mean,
get off stage, I'm ready to play another show.
yeah. Do you think it's a mental thing or do you think it's a physical conditioning thing?
I do think it's mental.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it's just they kind of turn their brain off and then
Yeah.
just let only their body take over. And yeah, if your body's doing something forceful or vigorous, a lot of times your body only knows to attack it even harder when it starts getting to be a struggle. That's where your mind needs to come in and say, hey, everybody, chill your boots a minute. Like,
Yeah.
let's relax here. Let's, get ourselves together and let's do this part correctly,
Hmm.
relaxed, rather than your body just wanting to like hit this thing so hard, and now
Right.
you've wiped yourself out in the third song and you've got another 7 songs to play,
Hmm.
but you're already dead. And that's where I've always preached, for me drumming is 90% mental, 10% physical. It's all what's going on in your brain that is really driving what you should be doing.
Yeah.
So if that's any help.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's see here. You have talked about regimentitis before, and what I believe.
What the
Yeah,
hell is that?
I've been watching some other interviews, and what I believe you're referring to is, when people just stick to like one kind of style of music, one very strict style of music, and they're afraid to kind of break out of that.
Yeah, sure,
And I know
sure.
you you incorporate a lot of like things like shuffle beats into your practicing.
Absolutely.
Have you suffered from regimentitis before in your career?
I've put myself into regimentitis purposely now.
Really?
If that's the case. Yeah, because like say 10 years ago, I was really interested in becoming such a well-rounded drummer that I could play every single style and or every style that I wished to play. Like, for instance, for me, jazz, I'm not much of a jazz guy, so you're not going to see me, pulling off some old, gosh, Buddy Rich, kind of things,
Hmm.
even though he's amazing, best drummer ever, probably. That's not my forte,
Hmm.
but that's one thing that I've I've concentrated so much on metal only. Like I've just I got sucked back into metal, I
Hmm.
suppose. Where 10, 12 years ago when I was filming the first DVD, that first Atomic Clock one,
Hmm.
that's why I put a couple of non-metal songs on there just to show, hey man, G could play it all.
Yeah.
And that was kind of where I thought my career might be entering. But then I just thought, man, fuck, I'm so metal. I love metal. I love
Hmm.
playing metal. I love being a metal drummer. I've mentioned quite a bit recently how excited I am to be a metal drummer in my 70s, touring,
Hmm.
playing, wielding, thrashing drums, hauling double bass deep into my 70s. That I that's my interest. So
Hmm.
I'm following my interest. That might involve some regimentitis, but I will no doubt be doing some sessions in the future or some kind of projects in the future that aren't quite as metal as what I like playing.
Hmm.
But I've accepted the fact that I love metal. I love playing metal. I love playing hauling double bass. Give me all the hauling double bass songs I can play at a show, and I'm up for it.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's where I want. That's what I would like to do. So I suppose I have created my own regimentitis to because I like doing what I do.
Hmm.
So I want to keep doing it. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Cool. So if you could go back in time though to when you were like 20 years old, what drumming advice would you give yourself if you knew everything that you know now?
Um,
Is there anything you would have changed about your drumming
that,
career or
that's
drumming
a
path?
real that's a really good question, and I'm just trying to
Yeah,
just trying.
it's a deep question.
Yeah, sure. Like, what would I go back and tell my 20-year-old self? Um, well, a lot of things. Like, I find that a lot of things that I would tell myself as a musician, more so than just being a drummer, would I would tell myself, hey man, go take a business course, get to learn the
Mm,
business angle of your life, let alone your career. Um, you know, g- uh, l- I've taught myself how to read contracts, legalese and that sort of thing. Probably could have made it a little easier on myself if I took a business course, or if
mm,
I would have definitely made it easier on myself if I knew how to read contracts when I was 18, signing,
mhm.
my first 17 or whatever age I was when I was signing my
Yeah.
first contracts. I signed so many knives into my own back in the day that is something I would warn myself of. Hey man,
Mhm,
just get to know your business. Get
mm,
to know if you want to do this for a living, like you do. Um, have yourself armed with every skill that obviously you arm yourself with your musical skills, arm yourself with your business acumen and
mm,
you know get get a business knowledge going for yourself so you can always at least have your own advice. You can take your own advice. You don't have to appeal to anybody else like, hey man, what should I do here? Well, shit, I don't know, Gene, what should you do? You can answer all these questions for yourself, and that's
mhm.
that's one thing I've been able to do, and that's one reason I'm able to survive is that I'm pretty decent at the business these days, but there was a time 30 something years ago when I was not, and
Mhm.
that's affected things to this day. There's
Wow.
contracts I've signed back then that affect you to this day,
Mhm.
so that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably something that most people don't think about. So it's really good advice. I mean, it's something I wouldn't have even thought about.
Cool, man.
um, so in your early drumming years, you really helped shape kind of what thrash metal would become. Um, you were kind of creating all the rules as you went. So do you see any new and exciting subcategories of rock or metal emerging today, or do you think
All of
everything's
them.
been played out like already?
No, I really don't think that. I mean, granted, there's a lot of things that have just happened before, and
Mm,
now some of the younger bands are paying homage to that, and that's awesome. That's cool. Like if if I if there was a thrash metal for me to grow up listening to, then I would probably only want to be in a thrash band. I
mm,
understand that. I kind of predate thrash just a little bit. Um, but thrash metal became, as soon as we started creating it, I'm like, this is the greatest metal ever.
mhm,
To this day, I still feel that aggressive thrash metal is the best way to go. But I think there's exciting subgenres in all styles of music, and especially in metal. I might not
mm,
like every one of these kind of mall core kind of bands or whatever, but I appreciate a lot of them.
mhm,
I the one thing that I do see, and I talked about this in an interview a couple of weeks ago, was like when people used to ask me when new metal was getting big, and you had your Corns and your Limp Bizkits and your Deftones and all these bands doing what they were doing, and then all the other bands that came around. People would ask me back then, "Hey man, what do you think of this stuff, man? Do you think it's stupid or what?" And I'm like, "No, I don't think it's stupid because, you know, uh, like say in 1997 or 98, when I'm being asked that question, 10, 15 years before that, what was metal and big to people was Motley Crue and Quiet Riot and Autograph and
mhm,
Rat and all this horse shit that that sucked, but it was popular,
mhm,
and those are not my kind of bands at all. And so those were the popular bands. Those are the ones that everybody called heavy metal. And I'm like, none of these bands are heavy metal. What are you talking about? At least with new metal, it was at, all okay, Jesus, all new metal was to me was the breakdown mosh parts of thrash songs. That's
mhm,
that's that's what new metal was. Okay, we would have one of these riffs in all of our songs. You guys have made an entire sound out of the mosh breakdown beat. Okay, killer, fine.
mhm,
Um, at least it was heavier. It was down tuned. It was heavy. The tones were heavy. They were trying to be heavy. There would be some screaming, whether you like Korn or not, like his vocals or not. Hell, at least he would yell some of the time. You never heard Motley Crue doing anything other than
mhm,
whining. So, um, and Korn guy, he's pretty whiny too. But at least there'd be some rage happening at some point. So I was, new metal might not have been my thing, but I appreciated the fact that it was an approach that if everybody thinks this is heavy metal, I'm easier. I can agree with new metal being heavy metal than Motley Crue. So
mhm,
I appreciate that. Just like today, a lot of these bands, granted, a lot of them sound the same. They got their screamy verse and then their boy band chorus. A lot of these bands, they sound like boy bands in the chorus. They're really
mhm,
sweet little clean vocals. Um, that's fine. A lot of times the music is pretty ripping underneath all that. So if you have a band like I'm just naming bands that I can, Asking Alexandria or Breaking Benjamin or Of Mice and Men or August Burns Red or whatever, those bands all have a pretty heavy approach at their base. So it may or may not be my scene, but I can appreciate the fact that it exists and people get entertained by it, and the fact that it's hey, as long as it ain't like Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera or Ariana Grande or any of
mhm.
these fake pop artists, chances are I'll be okay with it.
Yeah.
Just Only thing I really rage against is just the plasticity of what's popular.
Mm.
The Ariana Grandes and Justin Bieber's and all their music just all sounds the same to me.
Mhm.
But I'm sure I'm not saying anything new for people, and it does. It just I couldn't tell you an Ariana Grande song from a Demi Lovato song from a whoever it is, Selena Gomez or anything. That is not my scene whatsoever.
Mhm.
Um, but a lot of these younger metal bands, they're at least trying to be heavy. And if you have a lot, if it's not their fault that they got popular. Their
Mhm.
music, like uh, I some of it's cloying, but I think they're attempting to be heavy, and that's
Mhm.
their best attempt at it. And oh, it went to number one. You cannot blame Lamb of God for going number three with every one of their albums because they're trying to write the heaviest album they can.
Mhm.
And you might like Slipknot, you might not, but hey, at least they're trying to bring heavy metal to you. So there
Mhm.
you go.
Yeah, very wise words. So, what are your thoughts on where drumming in general is headed, just in the future? I mean, where do you see drumming in 50 years, with like just in general, with like the different genres coming out, with all the new drummers coming out, with electronic drum sets coming out? I mean, where do you see drumming in the future?
Um, Boy, I can't wait for that big giant air drum kit to finally be in. I go to
I've
an amp.
seen air
There's
drum sticks or something like
there
that.
are there those are coming. So
Yeah.
as soon as we can start playing our instrument without having to lug that thing around, then I'm all for that. But
Yeah.
um, everything is it's pretty apparent. Everything is pretty cyclical. Um,
Mm.
20 years ago, groove was real big, but 5 years before that, well, 25 years ago, groove started getting big. Um, and before that, groove wasn't big. So right now, there's groove has taken a back seat to technique, I
Mhm.
think, which is great. It's like now a lot of these drummers are just showing off their chops and look at what I can do for 10 songs on a record, which is killer. Um, I'd always advise you might want to sprinkle a little, pretty around all that ugly just
Mhm.
to, set it apart from itself. But I'm sure in a few years there's going to be that one giant band that nobody's heard of yet that's going to come out and completely change the course for everybody. And I'm sure that band is going to sound nothing like these extremely technical math metal bands that are the popular ones at the moment. I think that's great. I think what it will evolve into will be great. Somebody's going to come along and create something that is, wow, this isn't fast or uh, technical or anything, but we sure like its groove. So that's the next cycle. I think that's pretty easy to see. Right
Mhm.
now, groove is not a big part of what we all do, especially in the more extreme side of metal. But it'll come back around.
Mhm.
Pantera came along and with their power groove, and that created a whole line of young bands after that. And then you know, Korn did its thing, and then Slipknot took its Korn influence and put that towards put some blast beats out. So I don't know. You're going to find it just kind of waxing and waning, and the little roller coaster of rhythm will keep occurring, and it'll swing back towards groove, and then in 10 years after that, it's going to be the most extreme thing you can think of is what you're supposed to be doing. So
Yeah.
I mean, we all thought thrash metal was going to be the heaviest, most psychotic music ever. Then grindcore and death metal all came out afterwards, and then it's like Jesus.
Mhm.
How do you top that? So make machines play it. So gosh, I don't know.
What are your thoughts on electronic drum sets? Have you had a chance to play on some, or do you think they're just not really there yet?
No shit, I think they're great.
Mhm.
They're awesome. Like it, I don't know in terms of applications for recording. Um, I'm sure there's some decent applications for that, but for demoing and stuff like that, they're awesome. I play a electronic kit every time I go up to Eric from Testament's place
Mhm.
to rehearse. Got a little electronic kit in the corner there that I play, and it's a motherfucker to play, but I do it, and
Mhm.
I make it fun. And electronic kits are great, man. You can play the piss out of them, and you don't have to stretch,
Mhm.
like your actual physical, like you got one snare right here, then you got your tom right there, and then you got your other
Yeah.
tom right there, just like that. You don't have to doom, then doom, then doom. Everything's right in front of you, so kick ass. I'm
Yeah.
down with that. So yeah, electronic drums definitely have their place totally.
Cool. So to wrap things up, what are your drumming plans for the rest of this year, for the rest of 2019 and into 2020? And is there anything that you want to say to the drumming community?
Well, I'll tackle that last one first, like to the drumming community, man. Just everybody is doing such a great job, and any sort of success I've had or whatever, I appreciate everybody, you know, being super super awesome. Like gosh, this is one thing that's I'll tell you when we get off this thing. Something cool happened this weekend that I'll have to point out, but I don't want to do it right here. Um, but the drumming community, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. I like, if if you do look to me or other guys like me as inspiration, we all appreciate it. We all thank you for your dedication to your craft, our craft, and all that stuff. Thank you very much for that. And as for the plans for 2019 and 2020, well, right now, like I said, we're Testament is in the process of writing the new record, so I head up there every week or so to jam with Eric for a few days, and I'm in the process of writing the new Dark Angel album. I'm taking care of that. Me and my wife Lara, we have our project that we've had for a while, but we haven't been able to get it off the ground yet. We're moving forward with that one as well, and that's my most extreme project that I'm doing. That's the most extreme drumming I've got going on, and she does not lighten up on me. She's like, Hoglan, you got 2 feet, use them. I'm not gonna treat you like a pussy like the rest of your bands do. Use your feet, motherfucker. But that's pretty cool. Um, but yeah, lots of touring, and
Mhm.
hopefully a clinic tour or two involved in all that, and um, hopefully I. I'm personally not sure about when the next time I might be doing any more DVDs or anything like that. But check out the old YouTube channel. If you got nothing else to do, and um, I think it's called The Real Gene Hoglan or something like that. Shit, I don't even
Mhm.
know what my YouTube channel is called. But hey, stop by Gene Hoglan's YouTube channel. Um, and we're just going to try to keep moving everything forward and trying to help try to create the coolest metal we can, try to create the best metal that we all can, and I love laying it down heavy and then heavier and then heavier than that. So I'm always down with like the super extreme stuff. So um I'm down with that. So hopefully the New Testament is gonna drop, I would imagine, before the end of the year, and the new
Awesome.
Dark Angel I know we're going to be working on, and hopefully there's going to be some touring involved with Dark Angel. We're trying to get some Death to All stuff happening as well. And for those who might not be familiar with that project, that is myself and Steve DiGiorgio and Bobby Coble, um, all from Death, and our vocalist is Max Phelps. We go out and we have a cool tribute to Death. We have a cool tribute to Chuck that we love
Cool.
to go out and tour with, and it's just a super fun vibe. It's like a vacation for us because we love the music, we love each other, we enjoy being around each other, and it's just always a cool tour. It's just always a cool night. There's always so many folks at the end of the night that are they've got huge smiles on their faces and tears. Like a lot of them are like, thank you for doing this. We didn't get a chance to see Death when it was in their heyday, but thank you
Mhm.
for coming out and doing this for us all. Because sounds just like death. It's
Yeah.
it's pretty damn good. So we got that going as well, and like I say, hopefully some clinics are going to be happening and
Mhm.
all sorts of nonsense. I got some cool stuff that's going to be released later this year that I can't talk about yet because I haven't been given the official go ahead. But I'm doing some cool movie things, big
Right.
blockbuster movie
Wow.
things. So like enormous blockbuster movie that I'll be involved in, and that's cool. That's always fun.
Awesome. Yeah, very cool. Thank you so much, Gene. Not only for doing this interview, but just thank you for everything you've brought to drumming in general throughout your career. And just thank you for pushing the boundaries. It's like you've been a huge inspiration for me, and I know for countless other drummers out there. So thank you for that.
Well,
Uh,
thank you, Ian. I appreciate that. That's really
yeah.
cool, man. Very
And
much.
so you guys can make sure you check out Gene's website at hoglanindustries.com. You can catch him on Facebook at Gene Hoglan official page. He's on Twitter at Gene Hoglan, and he's on Instagram at The Real Gene Hoglan. So again, thank you so much, Gene, and to everybody out
Thank
there,
you, Ian.
make sure you check out our website, drumradar.com, and thanks for watching.